This week on ESO Vlog, we take a comprehensive look at the basics of blacksmithing. Hello everybody. Before the video gets started, I wanted to mention that this project ran a little long, so I've broken this down into two videos. The video that you're watching right now is our basic tutorial. It is a comprehensive guide into the processes and concepts behind Elder Scrolls Blacksmithing. In the bottom right hand corner you will find a link to our advanced tutorial. The advanced tutorial discusses more intricate subjects including mathematics and efficient leveling. If you are already familiar with blacksmithing in ESO, you may want to skip over to the advanced section. If not, enjoy the basic tutorial. Now this is on the screen right now you are seeing the default blacksmithing UI. This is the first screen that you will see once you click on the Anvil blacksmithing station. In the top left hand corner you can see our experience bar. It shows our overall skill level, our progression to the next level. Crafting in Elder Scrolls Online uses inspiration points, not experience points, but functionally wise they are the exact same thing. Moving over to the top right, we see the four processes involved in blacksmithing, each represented by a separate tab: creation, improvement, extraction, and research. All blacksmithing begins with some form of extraction, so we will start there. The extraction process is simply destroying an item and breaking it down into its raw components, which we can then repurpose during the creation process. As a blacksmith, you will extract from three types of items: metal weapons, metal armor, and ore. Extracting from ore will always return ingot types matching the ore type from which they were extracted. Similarly, extracting from metal armor and metal weapons will return ingots matching the metal from which they were made. Depending on the style and quality of the metal armor or weapons from which you extract, you may also receive some bonus items. These items can include trait stones and racial stones, which are used in the crafting process, or improvement tempers that are used in the improvement process. So now that we know what we're doing and why we're doing it, let's start extracting. I usually like to begin with ore because it doesn't really have much other of an in-game purpose, at least as far as I know. Ore is extracted in stacks of 10, usually yielding 7 to 8 ingots per stack. Oh noes, I only have 8 pieces of ore, so I can't break these down into ingots. But we learned that I can use armor or weapons. Let's go ahead and go to weapons. Now, flint axe, I've got you in my sights for breaking down into component parts, but something just popped up, and this is important to note. This flint axe has a trait on it called sharpened. Increases armor and spell penetration by 2%. Now, I can research that trait and gain the ability to place it on new axes that I craft. Research is a long and cumbersome process, and it's always a good idea to start it early. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that flint axe and go over and double click on the iron dagger and extract. Now you notice I did not get an in-game or UI message about what items I received. It pops in my inventory. Okay, iron sword. Again, nothing particularly special about this. I want the ingots, so let's extract. And we came across another trait, sharpened, increases armor and spell penetration by 2%. So, this boot knife has the same trait as this flint axe. So this brings up a good point, though. This is a dagger, and this is an axe. When you research something, you only gain the ability to place that trait on the exact same type of item. These are both one-handed. I don't gain the ability to put it on all one-handed. I only gain the ability to put it on a one-handed axe or a one-handed dagger. Since we've broken down the daggers, I now have the raw materials I need to start the creation process and craft new items. But this conundrum here requires my attention. Now, as an orc dragon knight, I am much more likely to be using a one-handed axe as opposed to a dagger. So I'm going to, before I go and create new items, I'm going to start the research process with my flint axe. We are now on the Research tab. Research is simply the process of learning how to apply traits to new items that you craft. Now, there are a few important things to know about research before you get started, and the most important one is the one that we already discussed, the item slotting. I want to draw your attention to the selection tool in the Research UI. You notice that each individual weapon has its own selection. However, there is no breakdown for weapon quality or what metal these weapons are crafted from. I would also draw your attention to the fact that this is a one-handed axe and this is a two-handed axe. They are considered separate items. The same thing goes for armor. A chest piece is a chest piece is a chest piece, regardless of material or quality. And you go through the various armor pieces. Now that we have that covered, let's go ahead and take a look at that axe. So as you can see here, here is the individual list of traits. Weapons and armor all have 8 traits. I go down to sharpening, and the UI pop-up begins. As you notice down here, there is a 6-hour timer. This is in real-world time. So if I start this research and then go to the bank and come back, that clock is ticking whether I'm logged in or out. Now you remember, I said that there are 8 individual traits and that research traits is tied to the individual weapon or armor piece. Every time you learn a new trait on a piece, the timer doubles. So if I were to learn this exact same trait on a dagger, which I do have a dagger with the same trait, if you recall, that will take 6 hours. However, if I learn another one of these traits on the axe, that's going to take 12, then 24, and so on down the line. To learn all traits on an individual item would take roughly 63 days. That can be modified through perks, more on that later. So I'm going to go ahead and start my axe and start my research timer. Again, this is real world time, so if I leave, it doesn't really matter if I log out. So you want to be doing this as often as possible just to keep that clock ticking. Now, because I began the research process, that axe was destroyed, and you see here the little countdown timer that we want to keep ticking has taken its place. So we've broken down some core components to get raw materials. We've started our research. I guess now it is time to start creating. Like all of the other processes, creation has a few things you're going to want to know before you get too far in. What are you making, armor or weapons? From what will you be making the armor and weapon? What type of ore? What ethnic style will it have? And what traits or special abilities will it have? We are going to start with iron daggers because they are the most efficient leveling. More on that in the advanced section. So we go over to daggers. Now to materials. I'm low level. I really only have iron available to me. However, you need to know. I have a selector here for how many ingots I want to use. Look at the item level and damage output. The more items you use, whether you're making a weapon or armor, the higher the level it will be, and the more effective the piece will be. This will also tie into our leveling process a bit later. You also notice I can make up to a level 14 item. Just because I can craft it doesn't mean I can wield it. You still have to meet the minimum level requirements. We're going to go ahead and not burn that many ingots on this particular item. The next is the style. This is the racial style of the item. When the game starts, you can only create items in your individual character's racial style. As you find books throughout the world, it will allow you to create new styles. These differences are purely cosmetic. Each style has a corresponding stone that you also have to have in the inventory. That stone is sold by a vendor who in all of the towns is almost always standing right next to the forge. These books are tradable, and once you read the books, you have that knowledge forever. So you find a book, you read it, you put it in your bank, you have all of your alts read it, and then you put it up for sale on the auction house or wherever character sales are going to take place. So racial knowledge is going to get around like wildfire. And finally, we have the traits. Well, I just started my first research, so I don't know of any traits. Plus, I'm making a dagger and I'm researching an axe, so I couldn't put it on this anyway. So we have all of the pieces necessary to go ahead and create our first item. Now, as I said earlier, creation is 1/2 of the level gain, extraction is the other. So I want you to take a look up here at our XP bar. We see 1,266, and we craft this. It is now 1,314. So we've extracted the core components, we've researched the traits, we've created a weapon. There's really only one thing left to do, and that would be to improve the weapon that we just created. Okay, finally the Improving tab. Please take note. Improving items does not generate crafting XP. You can improve any item you own, whether you crafted it or not. If the item was tradable or sellable before you improved it, it will remain so afterward. The item improved will be more effective, it will deal more damage or provide more armor, but the item level itself will stay the same. And finally, if you fail while improving the item will be destroyed. So now that we've taken all of that in, how do we actually go about improving a weapon or piece of armor? Well, at the bottom of the screen, you have an improvement flowchart. You go from normal to fine to superior, to epic, to legendary. At each step along the way, you are going to require an improvement temper. And this is where the bottleneck is, because these are hard to come by. So now let's go ahead and pick an item to improve. I'm going to choose the dagger we saw earlier with the trait on it, because if it is successful, it will probably have the biggest bang for my buck as far as resale value. You can see now the dagger's characteristics are here in the UI, and right next to it, this is the improvement temper for the first level of improvement, going from normal to fine, and this is a honing stone. Now, as you can see, for every honing stone that I add, I gain 20% chance to succeed all the way up to 100%. And this is the risk factor here. As I mentioned, these honing stones, or all of the improvement tempers, are hard to come by. So do I take the risk and farm this all the way up to 100 and burn 5 stones? Or do I take the chance and say, you know what, hey, I'm just going to take the risk? As I only have 1 honing stone and it serves our purposes anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take the risk and see what happens. Fingers crossed. And I failed. And that is the basic blacksmithing tutorial. If you enjoyed the video or learned something, a click on the old thumbs up like button would certainly be appreciated. And finally, in the center of your screen is a link to our advanced tutorial where we discuss concepts like mathematics and power leveling. If you had a follow-up question or a concern, just leave a comment. I still try and reply to everybody, or send me a tweet at DracoBore.